With 6 teams on bye for week 8 of the NFL season, your lineup decisions just became 6 times harder. So today, Ty and I will be covering 12 different players and whether you should be starting them or risk potentially sitting them this week. And Ty, this might be the grossest 12 players that could change your week 8 outcome we've ever done in our entire lifetime. Thankfully, at the top, you're not starting out super gross because I do think Isaiah Pacheco is a startable player this week.
Yeah, I wonder if people are going to look at Isaiah Pacheco and go, like, should I start like the guys that we'll talk about as sits? Should I start like a Chuba Hubbard? And this is just my vote of confidence in Isaiah Pacheco, because we may have just seen Kareem Hunt take the back seat in this backfield moving forward after what happened against Vegas. Before the fourth quarter, Isaiah Pacheco outsnapped Kareem Hunt and Brashard Smith combined 44-30. So Isaiah Pacheco now has a stranglehold on this backfield. And on top of it, we found the end zone. Okay. So as soon as the touchdowns were about to hit, I got all excited because at least there was a shift in the usage. And I said, hey, you might want to go trade for Isaiah Pacheco before the touchdowns hit. And the touchdown hit last week. And Isaiah Pacheco's value may have just gone up even a little bit more at this point. But again, Isaiah Pacheco is now the guy in this Kansas City backfield in what is arguably the hottest offense in the league right now. So now we get Washington on Monday night. Washington is allowing the 6th most fantasy points per game to the position in their last 4 games. They are top 10 in rushing yards allowed as well, and yards per carry. So this is not really a phenomenal Washington defense. When you're going up against a red hot Chiefs offense, I'm expecting a lot of kind of closing out usage here for Isaiah Pacheco in this game. So like I said, I'm starting Isaiah Pacheco over both of our sits, who we are, the guys that we will talk about as our sits. I'm starting him over Chuba Hubbard, over Tony Pollard, even over a guy like Woody Marks, who may have had a really nice game last week. I'm still giving my vote of confidence to Pacheco here.
Yeah, the 2 most important things for Isaiah Pacheco this week is that Kareem Hunt is probably going to be out again. We're recording this on Wednesday, 5 p.m. Central Time. Who knows? We don't have the official injury reports come the weekend. And also Jaden Daniels has already been ruled out for this game against the Chiefs as well. So like you said, closing on opportunities for Isaiah Pacheco. And Brashard Smith didn't get the bulk of his opportunities until the 4th quarter of last week. That's the other piece I want to make sure we point out here too, because he did have 13, 14 carries, looked pretty good in his slice of action. But again, that game was so far out of range for the Raiders at that point, where there was literally 0 point for the Chiefs to be playing Pacheco.
I mean, it was kind of funny because it felt like the last 7 plays before Gardner Minshew kind of kneeled out their last possession, they were just fine giving the ball to Brashard Smith and just letting him go for 2 yards and maybe a yard here and maybe a yard backwards here. That's the kind of usage that we got from Brashard Smith. Yeah, he makes it in the a little bit of receiving work then.
You'll get the passing game,
right? But when we're looking at goal line stuff at this point, short yardage, early down work, all of that kind of stuff, it's now Isaiah Pacheco at this point. And I don't really think Kareem Hunt is going to be that much of a threat. And now saying that, it's just going to be my luck that Kareem Hunt is going to be the guy again. He's going to walk away with 3 touchdowns and you'd be like, well, what the heck? So just fair warning, because that's commentators curse a little bit. But again, I like the fact that this is the guy in this offense that is going to put up points pretty much up against anybody at this point for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Kareem Hunt may or may not play in week 8. We'll see what's happening with that ankle injury there. But before we move any further onto the rest of the players in this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell as well, so you know when all of our newest content is up. I have a dream that I want to express to the people, Ty. I was sitting in my car the other day, was driving back from the day job, and I had the thought of wouldn't it be cool if we hit 10K subs by the end of the season? We had a lofty goal of 5K going into the season. We're now halfway through the season. What if we hit 10K by the end of the season? All right, that's a big ask. We're sitting at 5,600 right now. So it's a big ask. Our goal is to hit 10K by the end of the season. It would mean a lot to us if you help us in achieving that. We want to give you the insights to help beat your friends in fantasy football, excuse me. But we're literally a bunch of college buddies who love fantasy football, grew our friendship deeper with fantasy football. We want to remind you of the fun and camaraderie that comes with that as well, ultimately. So we would appreciate it. Show us a little bit of love, a little bit of support, and join us on our fantasy football journey. I'll pivot to my start of the week here, Ty. How about Tyler Algier? I will repeat this for the second straight week as I talked about Bill Krosky-Mara last week. If your running back crushes the Dallas Cowboys or the Miami Dolphins, they are just simply doing their job. Okay? Whether you realize it or not, Tyler Algier has 10 plus carries in 4 of 6 games this year. In 3 of those games, he's given you top 30 finishes at the position. In 2 of them, he's given you top 20 finishes. So Boylan, 6 teams on bye, the Dolphins being a bottom 3 run defense in the league, you flush out the rest of the rankings, Ty. Like, to me, Tyler Algier quietly becomes like a sneaky little flex play this week that I think is a lot more appealing than people might realize.
I completely agree with this. Tyler Algier kind of plays what we would classify as the closer role in this backfield, where it gets into the fourth quarter game is pretty out of hand. It's 2 scores maybe. Tyler Algier is the guy that gets in the game. That's what we saw against Buffalo, where Bijan was having a career game. They turned to Algier to kind of close out the game. So not only do I expect that to happen against Miami, that might start like at the beginning of the second half. Like that's the kind of potential that we have here, where both Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson can absolutely feast. And Algier doesn't need, the 16 carries that we've seen before. If he gets it, awesome. But if he walks away with like 10 to 12 carries, I'm expecting him to walk away with like 50, 60, maybe even 70 yards. And he's probably going to find the end zone in this one. So I could not agree more. You don't think of Tyler Algier as he's not a start like in any other week. But again, when we're in the middle of Buy-Mageddon is what we call it, with 6 teams on bye, may need to kind of get a little fancy, try to get a little sneaky here. And I think Tyler Algier is like the perfect candidate for that.
I don't think a lot of the teams that the Dolphins have faced this year have had a 2-back committee. And I'm not calling Bijan Robinson in a committee outright with Tyler Algier, but clearly Tyler Algier is still involved. And you look at just some of the numbers running backs have been putting up against the Dolphins. I mean, Kamani freaking Vidal had 124 rushing yards. Rico Dowdle had 206. Look, Bijan Robinson could rush for 350 yards, and I think Tyler Algier could still muster up 50 yards in a score in this game. When you're looking at the quality, and that's not a dig on any of those guys. I'm just saying this Dolphins run defense is so bad that you could see 150 from Bijan in this game and another 50, 60 from Tyler Algier, where he still finds the end zone and Bijan finds the end zone. I just think there's plenty for this Atlanta Falcons offense to feast on in this game against the Dolphins. So yeah, I really like Tyler Algier as a sneaky flex play this week. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's like a guaranteed top 20 lock. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever, but I would prefer him over some of the other wide receivers that you're probably potentially looking at this week to put in your flex spot. Let's move on to running back sits, Ty. I debated doing this segment more as a like bust risk, but even that feels tough with 6 teams on bye. If we had like 4 teams on bye, it might make a little bit more sense, but with 6 teams on bye, these are players who you might be considering sliding in, but we say, nah, actually go ahead and look at somebody else. Look, Nicholas Jamal Chubb, our boy. You're not respecting him here. I got to use the full government name so we give him at least that respect.
Give him respect that way, but this is just not worth getting cute with. This is not worth trying to galaxy brain your way to nailing the start with Nick Chubb. On one hand, you have the matchup aspect of this against the 49ers. The 49ers have allowed most of their fantasy points, and when I say most, like I'm talking like a good like majority, to receiving work. So when we look at just Nick Chubb and Woody Marks, who's going to be who's the bigger receiving threat here? It's Woody Marks.
Woody Marks.
That's not Nick Chubb's job. So that's the first part of this. The second part of this is that I understand that like Nick Chubb against Seattle last week was kind of the lead guy in the first half. Like he was getting the majority of work and drives and all that kind of stuff. But that's exactly how we've seen this backfield play out even before they went on bye. And so when you're going up against the 49ers, who are still putting up points and are still being very, very efficient with their opportunities, I have a good feeling that like Houston's going to be playing from behind a little bit. I don't really think this is going to be in a pretty neutral game script or in a favorable game script for Nick Chubb. And when that happens, that's where we go to Woody Marks because we need to get something going in this game. And you look at this Houston offense too right now. Nico Collins dealing with a concussion. He's doubtful already for Sunday. Christian Kirk, he's not practicing with a hamstring injury. So now we're looking at like pass catchers like Xavier Hutchinson and Braxton Berrios, who got in.
Berrios is, oh my God,
wild.
What's the Texans are lucky we don't do game recaps on this show.
Well, we're doing a pseudo one right now. Why spend the draft capital on Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel if you're not even going to use them? And Jalen Noel is your most dynamic pass catcher at that point. Beats me. So if you need to generate something in the receiving game, again, it's not going to be Nick Chubb. So I feel like I've probably spent too much time on Nick Chubb. I hope that's probably like the clearest picture that I could paint about this. Like this just nothing checks out here for me to say like, yeah, you could fire up Nick Chubb. I think this could go very wrong very quickly for him this week.
The 49ers have like sneaky been a good run defense this year. They've only allowed 2 running backs to rush for more than 65 yards against them this year. And they've only allowed 4 rushing touchdowns as running backs on the season. So behind a piss poor offensive line like the Houston Texans, I still kind of question what Nick Caley is trying to do with his offense here. At what point do you literally just say like, hey, Woody Marks, more explosive? I mean, granted, it wasn't the most, correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't the most efficient week for Woody Marks against the Seahawks last week. Their run defense is phenomenal up in Seattle, but I digress. At some point, Nick Caley has to look at this and say, oh, Nick Chubb, thanks, man. Appreciate you, but Woody Marks is going to be taking the lead here from now on. But that might also not be the case. And I don't know what the heck Nick Caley is doing. There's too many question marks here, too many uncertainties where I don't really want to deal with Nick Chubb in a matchup where I question if either him or Woody Marks will even hit 50 rushing yards in this game. That's just not a spot that I care to try and force Nick Chubb into. My running back sit. People, people think it's cool to be back in on Ramondre Stevenson now. If people just like are the Travion truthers, are they just completely gone? Like seriously, like answer me on this one. Are the Travion truthers just completely gone? That people think it's cool to be back in on Ramondre Stevenson?
I don't know if
that's what it feels like to me.
It's what it feels like, but I don't think people are in on Ramondre. I just think it's more people out and tired and exhausted of hoping and trying to will Travion Henderson into the game. And now there are some people that are kind of I will admit there are people that are shifting their attention to like Ramondre as like, hey, he's a buy candidate right now. We're not going that far. Okay. I think we are both just saying, however this backfield shakes out, it's stupid. We're done talking about it, and we don't want to talk about it because, again, we were so in on Travion.
I'm still in on Travion. Not like in. I'm not like back where I was when the season started in, but like it took Jahmyr Gibbs until week 7. And Travion wasn't as good of a prospect as Jahmyr Gibbs. He wasn't drafted with the same capital as Jahmyr Gibbs was. Sorry if I'm okay with this taking a little bit longer. Did I think it was going to be much sooner? Because I'm not overly impressed with Ramondre Stevenson. Yes, I'll gladly own up to that. But at any rate, I want to stop and acknowledge, though, that Ramondre Stevenson's projection in the underdog pick'em lobby this week tied 61.5 rushing yards. The only time Ramondre has hit that mark all season was against another bottom 3 run defense this year in the Tennessee Titans last week. It's the only time he's hit this mark.
He couldn't even hit that against Miami.
No! The Browns are not a bottom run 3 defense, Ty. They're actually a top 3 run defense. They're first in EPA per rush allowed, allowing only 15.8 points per game to running backs this year. That's dead last in the league. The only 2 running backs to hit 60 yards against the Cleveland Browns this year was superstar Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane in a monsoon last week. That's it. The only 2 running backs hit 60 yards. I don't know why we're like hot and bothered to be back in on Ramondre. I'm not interested. I don't want to play him against the Browns.
I don't understand all from the rushing yards. Like, I don't understand why we want to be in. Like, yes, there is some merit to like, hey, having a lead back on your fantasy team has its values and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of putting 2 and 2 together to go like, well, 6 teams on bye, not a lot of great options. Well, I should probably play a lead back. No,
you don't have to.
No,
Ramondre Stevenson or Tyler Algier.
Oh, Tyler Algier for me.
I'd rather play Tyler Algier. I think I would. And I could look silly at the end of this week. I will acknowledge that because it could be true of like, why not just take Ramondre, who's clearly playing ahead of Travion Henderson right now? Why not just keep riding this horse? I'm like, I would rather play the good matchup when Tyler Algier is still getting double-digit carries in 66% of games this year.
Yes. In the matchup with Cleveland, you touched on it. Not great. For a guy like who isn't the most efficient back, like, yes, we've had 2 games with 4.9 yards per carry. That was against Miami in the other game. But we have games with 2 yards against Buffalo. We have a game with 1.4 yards per carry against New Orleans, who just got absolutely obliterated by the Bears. I know that the Bears run game is probably a little bit better than the New England's right now, but that's the point, is that like we have to recognize that like the matchup has its own weight in this argument. And when we have talked about former running backs, like I vividly remember talking about Jordan Mason as a sit, and he proved me wrong because he found the end zone. So maybe that's what makes up for it. But even then,
it won't be rushing yards.
Exactly. Like Ramondre might walk away with like 12 carries, but for like 30 something yards and a score. So you're sitting there with 9 points in your lineup and you're like, well,
the RB 26 on the week.
Right. So I maybe that's probably the best way to say it, of just know that like this isn't like a super high upside. Like if you want like the guarantee just because of the role, fine. But you and I were both
convinced even that's there though.
The role
only 3 touchdowns for Ramondre on the season. He's not even scoring in 50% of games.
No, I agree with
the shot.
I agree with you on the touchdowns. I'm just saying, like, if people are just looking at volume, they may look at Ramondre. But you and I would both take the chance that, like, hey, Tyler Algier has been getting the same volume, if not more.
This is Walmart Tony Pollard you're looking at. Maybe actually equal to Tony Pollard. Maybe that's giving too much credit to Tony Pollard and the Titans offense. Just to make sure, I wanted to make sure of this too, because it hit me. I'm like, actually, the Cleveland Browns front line on defense might be banged up. Just to clarify, Malik Collins, defensive tackle, limited practice on Wednesday. He's just resting. Mason Graham, limited practice on Wednesday. Mike Hall Jr., defensive tackle, full practice on Wednesday. Shelby Harris, limited practice on Wednesday. I would guess that all those improve throughout the week, and you get a full, healthy defensive line back for the Browns. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing Pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the highers on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all 3 of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of Pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up, because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show. Ty, let's move on to starts and sits at wide receiver now. We'll obviously start with the starts. It's gross, man. I get it, though. You could throw Romeo Doubs in your flex this week. I get it. You might not have many options. And if you're shoot, in a 12-man league, you might need to play Romeo Dobbs at your flex this week.
Yeah, for real. He's kind of proven me wrong over the last couple of weeks. And he's probably proven everyone wrong that like we've been waiting for Matthew Golden to kind of like take over or be kind of the go-to guy. That hasn't happened. They're 2 games out of the bye. Their week 5 bye. Romeo Dobbs is wide receiver 17 in usage. He's a top 20 receiver in usage. He's targeted on 31% of his routes. That's 11th of all pass catchers in that same span. You want to know the next closest on the team?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I do. It's going to scare me because it's probably Matthew Golden, but I don't know how far behind he is.
It's Tucker Kraft, thankfully.
Oh, you're going. Okay, I was going wide receivers. I see. Yes, continue.
At 23%. So if there's somebody that's being looked at that has the trust of Jordan Love, it's Romeo Dobbs right now. And this is a beautiful matchup with Pittsburgh on Sunday night. I know there's the stat going around that Green Bay hasn't won in Pittsburgh since 1970 or whatever it is. Sure, that may have some merit to it, but guess what? That does not mean that Green Bay automatically plays bad or anything like that. Pittsburgh right now, they are top 10 in fantasy points allowed to outside wide receivers, where Romeo Dobbs lines up 86% of the time. And if you think that Jalen Ramsey's putting the locks on Romeo Dobbs, I hate to tell you to go watch the tape, but Jalen Ramsey is no longer Jalen Ramsey.
Which is crazy because he was actually playing pretty good, pretty solid at the start of the year. And now I don't know what's happened after the bye.
So I like Romeo Dobbs in the flex. I think he's got wide receiver 2 upside for me this week, where he can finish like somewhere between like 17 and 24 then, because if he finds the end zone, maybe we get another Dallas game where they get into the red zone and then it's 2 slants right to Romeo Dobbs. Like there are so many ways for this week to get even better than what I'm already expecting to happen. So I would fire up Romeo Dobbs this week.
He's had 8 targets in each of his last 3 games, averaging 17.8 fantasy points per game with at least 10 in each of his last 3. I mean, it's just a stupid number, man. So yeah, just ride this horse because the Green Bay Packers are an offense worth investing in. They're an offense we're starting week in and week out. You get a good matchup here with the Steelers. We saw what the Bengals did to them last week in the secondary. Fire up Romeo Dobbs. I'm very okay with slotting him in this week. I think the other fringe guy that like you feel pretty good about starting at this point, especially this week with 6 teams on bye. How about Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver for the New York Giants? He's actually given you back-to-back games with at least 12.5 fantasy points in 2 top 24 finishes. Not bad, Wan'Dale. Not bad. And I don't want to base this pick entirely off of his game against the Eagles 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football, where he did finish as a wide receiver 10 on the week. But Quinyon Mitchell did pick up a hamstring injury in that game. But you also look at Wan'Dale's utilization over the last 2 weeks. You and I were talking about this before the show, before we turned on the cameras, Ty. Wan'Dale was out on the perimeter more to draw matchups with Adoree Jackson and Keely Ringo in week 6. But then last week against the Broncos, where you're going to get the Pat Surtain shadow, well, Brian Dable started to move Wan'Dale back more into the inside to avoid Pat Surtain. So my guess is that sure, Wan'Dale Robinson is probably going to draw more Quinyon Mitchell in this game, but Dable's smart enough to move Wan'Dale around the formation to get him more matchups with Keely Ringo. So I'm willing to fire up Wan'Dale. I'm not saying it's the wide receiver 10 in this game, but could you get the wide receiver 20 this week? I really, really do, because the Eagles have been bleeding points to wide receivers.
I think my favorite thing about Wan'Dale, you kind of hinted to it when you mentioned that Brian Daboll is kind of like getting Wan'Dale freed up from the tough matchups. In the last 3 games where Jackson's already thrown for pretty much like 200 yards or more, Wan'Dale and Cam Scatterby are kind of like the 2 guys that he's looking for the most. So in a matchup against the Eagles, where I'm just going to say, I think points are going to be scored here again by both teams, I'm willing to take the chance that I feel like you get a I don't want to use the word guarantee. I always feel like guarantee is a strong word, but like
Guarantee is a very strong word.
you get volume here with Wandale at this
You
point
do.
because of how the Jets offense, or not the Jets, the Giants offense
You're
is.
thinking Garrett
Yikes.
Wilson now force fed the football. wrong New
Careful.
York team.
Wrong New York team. Very wrong New York team. But again, like I feel like there's an opportunity to score here, and we don't get many of these games with Wandale because that's not the type of player that he is. Yeah, he did score against Philly in their last game off of what was some really poor tackling by Philly,
Yeah.
but I don't know, man. Maybe I'm riding the wave of the vibes here with this Giants team with Jackson Dart kind of leading the way. I'm totally cool firing at Wandale again.
Yeah, look, you just keep riding this New York Giants offense, right? They're one of the hottest offenses in the league right now. You just keep riding this thing until the wave subsides, right? You talk about guaranteed volume. I mean, 7+ targets each of his last 3 games. He did draw 12 against Denver last week. My guess is that he's going to draw anywhere between 7 to 10 again this week, right? So on a bye week on a week with, again, 6 teams on bye, as we've mentioned multiple times at this point, as I'm sure is ingrained into your brain and you're wincing at every time you hear it. Like a guy with 7 targets in a red hot offense right now, sign me up. I'm good. Just throw that into my flex, especially if Wandale is going to bring you the points and receptions alongside it as well in full PPR formats. Wide receiver sits, Ty. Again, very similar to the running backs. It's more of, ooh, I could play this guy this week, but we're saying no, don't do it. Keyshawn Boutte, Ty. Red hot, though. He's catching touchdowns. Deep balls. No.
Look, I called Diggs to start last week, and I nailed that with the volume that he got. There was a part of me though that also called Diggs a start because I thought that Keyshawn Boutte would not really play a huge, role or impact the game in a big way just because of the amount of shell coverage that Tennessee plays. Well, we found a busted coverage and we found the end zone. So Keyshawn Boutte came through. But what we haven't seen really since the first week of the season is volume. So the first thing is you're banking on a big play to happen, which sure can happen any given week. But that's where I get into the second point. This matchup against Cleveland is arguably the worst matchup for a guy like Keyshawn Boutte. Cleveland plays man at the 6th highest rate in the league. Do you want to know how many percent, how much? I was going to try to quiz you. It's not worth it. Keyshawn Boutte is targeted on 9% of his routes against man coverage. You ready for this? Here's all the players on the Patriots that are targeted more on a per route basis than Keyshawn Boutte against man. Ramondre Stevenson, Stephon Diggs, Pop Douglas, Antonio Gibson before he got hurt, Kyle Williams in the short amount of time that we've seen him.
Kyle Williams. Hello.
And whoever decided to just drive by on the freeway right by my place just to say hello, not the time. Anyway, Hunter Henry targeted more against man. Travion Henderson. Okay, if you're counting, that's 7 players. Mac Hollins is targeted even more.
Oh, Mac Hollins. Shout out.
Matt, shout out. So I hope this proves my point. For a guy that relies on the big play and the deep plays, going up against man coverage is not super ideal. And the volume on top of it, the lack of volume, I should say, on top of it, don't get cute with this one either. Don't try to galaxy brain it. I'm avoiding Keyshawn Boutte this week.
All the insights that you provided were very, very valuable. The only thing I literally have to say is I'm just going to boil it down into a very simple sentence. The production is volatile. That's
correct. It. Yes.
The production is volatile. That's it. Like all the insights that you just gave are the very reason why that I'm not interested in Keyshawn Boutte this week. And the summation of it is it's volatile. And I get it on a week with 6 teams on bye. Maybe you want to shoot for that. But I would agree with you here. It could be the week that makes a difference where you could take 2 points from Keyshawn Boutte, like he's also given you this week. that could be the difference in your lineups, right? Instead of taking 8-9 points from a player like Tyler Algier, from a player like Romeo Dobbs, from a player like Wandale Robinson. I'm thinking of all of the guys that we've already said to start, right? That could be the difference. So I'm with you. No need to play Keishon Butte this week. I picked Keon Coleman because, fun fact, in my 12-man league, in our guillotine league, I was looking for a second player to slot in my flex this week. So we have 2 flex spots in that league. And I saw Keon Coleman on the waiver wire. And I thought, boy, with injuries that I have on this team, with getting beat out on fab bids for a handful of other players, Jahmyr Gibbs is on bye this week. I can't even play Jahmyr Gibbs this week. Could I play Keon Coleman? I had to remind myself, though, like, since week 2, Keon Coleman's only been averaging 4.8 targets and 6.5 fantasy points per game.
Yikes.
Oh, man, it's not good, man. Per Michael Florio over at NFL.com, the Panthers allow a league low 53% completion rate to wide receivers on the outside this year. It's just such a tough. You could look at this and be like, you know what, Keon Coleman, if he gives me that week 1 performance, it could be the difference this week. And I'm saying that's not worth chasing because it's been 6-7 weeks since week 1. It's been 6 games since week 1 for the Buffalo Bills. Don't do it. No need to.
No need to for a low passing volume offense that does not hyper target any of their guys and clearly favoring guys like Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir against zone defenses. This just isn't it. This is not a turnaround game. This is not a like bounce back spot for Keon Coleman in any kind of way. Don't get cute with it. don't try to outsmart your league mates or anything like that and look, if Keon Coleman like pops off for 20 points, like so be it.
So be it.
The point is the odds are stacked against Keon Coleman. And if you end up starting him, I think there's a greater chance of him finishing with 5 or fewer fantasy points than he does with 18 or more.
Right. No, 100%. And again, you don't need me to tell you to sit Keon Coleman. I am pushing down that temptation of like, but I could use him in the flex this week. I think I'm going to say this out loud. I'd rather play Kyle Monangai than Keon Coleman this week.
Whoa. Whoa. That's wild. We're getting a little crazy.
I don't know how I feel about that. I said it. I don't know if I want to take it back or not.
Is that the caffeine talking that you started downing right before we started, or
no? It's not the caffeine. But the matchup with the Ravens, Kyle Monangai, 13 carries this last week. Could we see a little bit more of him this week against the Ravens? Another score, maybe. Maybe it's more of a I would rather get crazy with a Kyle Monangai than I would with Keon Coleman this week.
I would rather play Amari DeMarcado than Keon Coleman. And DeMarcado
no, you wouldn't. Now you're just over exaggerating.
I'm just trying to prove a point, man. I'm trying to prove a point. That's all I'm doing. I'm not actually. Of course not. Keon Coleman,
anyway,
Golden Knowles. Sorry, Cam. He's not.
Oh, yeah, Cam's not here to defend his boy Keon Coleman. Look, we know you're going to have a lot of difficulty actually setting your lineups this week, and there's probably a multitude of players that you're like, okay, but could I slot him into my flex this week? I don't have many other options here. Join us on Sunday. We go live before kickoff every Sunday to answer all of your start sit questions here on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. So again, make sure you hit that follow button, turn the notification bell as well, so you know when we go live, so you can come and ask all of your lineup questions ahead of week 8. We'll make sure they all get taken care of for you. We'll get you right before kickoff this week. Ty, as always, we'll close it out. It's quarterback, tight end, streamers here. Great spot for Daniel Jones against the Tennessee Titans this week.
Yeah, not gonna lie, there are not many streaming options at quarterback this week. But at the same time, like let me clarify. There are not many great streaming options because there are easily like 8 names I could rattle off as streamer options.
Sure.
But like, again, when we're missing like Matt Stafford and Jared Goff, Kyler Murray, That's a debate. That's a debatable name at this point because
Oh boy.
boy, I I know that Daniel Jones probably isn't available in your leagues, but if you have him, I would start him this week when you just look at the fact that Tennessee is uh garbage at defense. And Indy is actually
Just plain, they're just that. They're garbage at defense. That's it.
they're garbage at defense. The implied team total for Indy this week is 30.5. Okay.
Oh, oh man.
So not only is Vegas expecting Indy to put up a ton of points here, uh, everyone else is. Okay. I don't think there's a single person that would actually we do like a fun little like pick 'em kind of group lobby with a bunch of our
Against the spread picks every week. Yeah.
and we do it over on Sleeper. And according to Sleeper right now, 89% of people are choosing the Colts to win that game. So
How
all
is
of
that
this
not
is
99?
I'm
Like,
just saying.
well, what's the spread? Is it against the spread? That's why.
No, that's just straight up pick 'em.
Oh, it's straight out. Jeez.
I know, which is like, come on, people, come on. If we not been, I would understand it
Debatably
if
the
you're
best offense in football right now.
against
The Indianapolis
debatably the
Colts.
worst
Worst.
defense. Who let me also add this will likely be without their best player, Jeffrey Simmons. So again, if points are scored by Indy here, Daniel Jones will be on the end of some of those plays. He'll put up points. Fire up Daniel Jones.
The only reason Daniel Jones becomes a bad option this week is if Jonathan Taylor ends up rushing for like 300 yards,
Which
I
he
won't put
might.
past. I won't put past Jonathan Taylor this week with how he's been playing. He's been literally playing like the MVP of the NFL thus far. I'll go ahead. I'll take the front runner for White Boy of the Year, Jackson Dart, is my stream of the week here. Hey, it's true, man. It's true. You know what's crazy though? I know you're giggling over there. You wanna know what's crazy though? Jackson Dart's still rostered in only 43% of sleeper leagues. Or Yahoo leagues, excuse me. 55% of ESPN leagues. What more does he need to do? Like, I don't know how much longer we can keep saying this will be the week he fails, but like that has yet to happen. It was supposed to happen last week against Denver. What happens? Quarterback 3 overall. Quarterback 3 against Philly the week prior. Quarterback 16 the week before that. Quarterback 11 in his first start against the Chargers. This Giants offense is rolling right now, man. And like, I'm looking at it like this. If I am truly a sane person and I am on the ride of the New York Football Giants right now, you don't jump off of a roller coaster mid-ride. You wait until that thing comes into park and you have a reason to get off of the roller coaster. That's the New York Giants right now. They are rolling. This is the wild thing at Valley Fair. The Superman ride at Six Flags. I'm not trying to get out of that ride at Six Flags. Fall to my imminent death. But once we come slide in at the station, I have a reason to get off the ride. I gladly will. But the Giants are rolling right now. Jackson Dart's rolling right now. I have no reason to believe that this offense will stop, especially what we saw against Philly just 2 weeks ago when they rolled them at home in MetLife.
Quarterback 4 since week 4. So, I mean, I think it's really
I'm sorry if I don't want to play the quarterback 4 since week 4. I know it's not as simple as that, but like, again, I'm just going to keep riding this thing out until I have a reason to not ride out this New York Giants offense. Plain simple.
Yep. He doesn't need to throw to like put up a great week.
50 plus rushing yards in 3 of those games. Yep.
Yes.
Only time he did it was last week against the Broncos. Only 11 yards last week.
Yep. And he did like, I feel like last week against Denver is like the perfect encapsulation of this. It doesn't need to be like, 50 plus rushing yards. He's going to at least have an attempt to run it in the red zone near the goal line. That's all that you need. You just need just one of those to fall in the end zone.
At the very least, you can play Jackson Dart for the good vibes that he has with Cam Scatterbo, and you can feel good about that in your lineup this week. Let's do tight ends, close out the show here, Ty. Dalton Schultz. Sure. Why not? Have some fun with it.
I feel like
because this doesn't feel fun at all.
I was gonna say it feels like if there's one position that you can get a little funky with, have a little bit of fun with, it's definitely tight ends this week. Okay.
You and I think it's fun to get funky with the tight ends. Cameron's just like, whatever. Gerald Everett, he's fancy. We'll play him.
Some people would actually like to spend more time talking about Gerald Everett. Some people would actually like to talk about actually winning in fantasy football and giving you like reasonable starts in streams.
And recognizing the value of a tight end in fantasy football and not just being happy with trying to grab the number one tight end and ripping people off in the process. Not targeting Cameron or anything with those comments, but just saying. Just saying. I've gotten plenty of offers for Trey McBride, and they have not been good offers for Trey McBride.
You and me both. Dalton Schultz is a guy that you probably should be starting at tight end this week. I thought about Kate Otten because it's a very similar situation. I don't mind either of them because when you see the pass catchers on their teams, who are they going to throw to? Like Baker has a Mecca. And then it's going to be like a rotation of like Tez Johnson and Sterling Shepard and Cameron Johnson. Cameron Johnson.
Yeah, Cameron Johnson. Yep.
We talked about this with Nick Chubb a little bit for the Texans, though. Stroud is going to have Xavier Hutchinson, Braxton Berrios, and a rotation of Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. So if there's a guy that CJ Stroud might trust the most this week, it's CJ. It is Dalton Schultz, and I don't want to put too much stock into the Kyle Pitts game against San Francisco because it feels like they did a lot to try to take away Drake London. They were like, fine, if you're going to go to Kyle Pitts, go to Kyle Pitts. But that's kind of the point, is that like Dalton Schultz isn't really a threat that they're going to try to take him out of the game. So yeah, I'm going to fire up a guy who's the tight end 9 in usage on the year. I'm going to do it this week.
That's crazy. Tight end 9 in usage for Dalton Schultz this year. That's actually crazy.
Do you know why?
Oh, because they literally don't have anybody else. They're literally rolling out Xavier Hutchinson and Braxton Berrios and everybody not named Jalen Noel, and Jaden Higgins.
Well, yeah.
That's literally it.
It's just because their offensive line can't block, so they need to get
that too. Well, okay, yeah.
And Dalton Schultz is the guy that's the safety valve here. So
yep. Since CJ Stroud is basically spooked every time he drops back because he literally has no protection. Okay, I'll close it out here, and I'll talk about a much more fun name because if you picked up Aronde freaking Gadsden this week, baby, I think you just fire him up. I think you fire him up. Here's the thing. I called Gadsden a stream back in week 4. So I was never wrong. I was just 4 weeks too early on Aronde Gadsden. Okay, seriously, the beautiful thing about him, though, is that he's not your big inline blocking tight end. He actually functions much more as a wide receiver. So now you get a Vikings defense, second highest blitz rate in the league against the Chargers offensive line. That's still recovering. That's a lot of quick passes, a lot of yards after the catch potential for Aronde Gadsden, who was third of all pass catchers, wide receivers included, in that department last week. So I actually like Gadsden as a nice little streaming option this week. If you even want to throw him in your flex, don't hate the idea of that either. Actually, I wouldn't tell you to put him in your flex because he's on Thursday Night Football. Put him in your tight end spot. Put whoever your tight end is in your flex if he's a much more confident play ahead of Gadsden.
So when you blitz as much as the Vikings do, you do need to play a decent amount of zone coverage, right?
Yes, you do. Yep.
This is wild. Keenan Allen's targeted on 28% of his routes against zone.
Yes, he is. 25% when Herbert is blitzed.
Guess who's next?
It's probably Gadsden. I would believe that.
It's Aronde Gadsden at 22%.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that.
So I think the matchup is here. I think we briefly touched on it just in our group chat that like this Minnesota defense might be a defense to start targeting at this point.
In the passing game.
So in the passing game, and
they're
guess who throws
in the run game right now.
This is also true, but who throws the ball the most?
This is exactly. It's Justin Herbert. Like I get the Vikings haven't allowed Jalen Hurts was really the first quarterback to piece him up this year. Like, look at who they played before that. I mean,
Exactly.
they hadn't really played anybody. So,
Yep.
yeah, you get the Herbert's our toughest test yet. I don't know if it's going to stand. And I think Gadsden's going to be a part of that.
And yeah, you specifically went out on waivers to get him. Time to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you probably didn't pay the big bucks for Gadsden, but you also rostered him to make sure you had him because you probably don't have a confident tight end or tight end that you're confident in. So go ahead, fire him up this week. I think he can do a lot worse, and I think he gives you some of the highest upside out of any of the tight ends he could potentially play this week. So when I finish my rankings, when it's all said and done, Gadsden's probably going to be top 10 in my lineup for sure, or top 10 in my rankings for sure this week. Might even be knocking on the door of top 7. I don't want to get too crazy, but could be a fun little week with Gadsden. I'm already there. So
I've been there, buddy.
We'll put a pin in it there. If you want to follow our other socials as well, FF Fellas over on Twitter, the FF Fellas over on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. If you're a YouTube person through and through, I respect it. We have content for you as well. Fantasy Football Fellas shorts on YouTube. That is all exclusive content. It's not repurposed from this show. It is all unique, independent, exclusive content that you won't find on this channel whatsoever. You can follow our personal socials as well. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on X, Tyler_Plath for Ty. We'll be back next week. What do we have coming up early next week? Because we're kind of not ditching. We're at this point in the season, we don't want to play Panic Patience. Because at this point, you kind of know who to have patience on, who to panic on. It's like basically just like premature buy sell at that point. So we're not doing any more trending ending.
It's rest of the season stuff. Here we go.
We got rest of season rankings next week. Is that what it is?
I think I'm a week early. I'm a week early.
Oh no, we're doing second. We got second half league winners. Second half league winners next week.
Pretty much rest of the season. Yeah.
Second half league winners. So players that you should definitely have an eye on or like have a major vote of confidence in. So make sure you tune in for that. We'll have more trade targets and starts and sits next week as well. Take care, y'all. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you then. Deuces. Actually, we'll see you Sunday.
Oh,
Deuces.
Sunday. Deuces.